Welcome everybody to section 5.5 notes. We're doing the zero factor property today. I'm Mr. West. Let's go ahead and get started. Here we have the zero factor property. What is it all about? Well, it's an extension of factoring, and it's the real money maker of factoring. It's why we do factoring. So the principle is this: if we have two numbers times together, multiply together, A times B, and it equals 0, this is the important part, it equals 0. Then we know that if it equals 0, either A equals 0 or B equals 0. That has to be true, right? Because anything times 0 equals 0. So either A is 0 or B is 0. So if we're doing the zero factor property, we need to make sure we set the equation to 0. We want to have 0 by itself on one side of the equal sign. So no matter what we have on one side, we want it to equal 0 on the other. This will allow us to implement the zero factor property. Here's an example. You can go ahead and color in these snowmen too if you want. So like for example, I could use like this sandy color and make a little sand snowman for all those people living in tropical places. A little sand snowman there, and you can go ahead and color in maybe some different colors for his little scarf there. Make a little tip, something like that. Give him like, I don't like that color eyes. Sorry, just a little detour. Just want to make sure we got a little bright and smiling snowman for you guys to enjoy. So here we go. All right, cool. Should I finish the hat? I'll finish the hat real quick. If you don't want to watch this, go ahead and fast forward. I promise I'll get to the math in just a second. Okay, and then you color it in. If you have the notes, great. If you don't, maybe go ahead and draw your own little snowman. Maybe I'll do some Bob Ross videos later on. Okay, so we're done with our snowman. Now we're ready to solve this equation. We have x plus 6 times 2x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, what do we do? Well, first thing I want to draw your attention to is this parenthesis, okay, could be equated to this one right here. And this one could be equated to this parenthesis. Now, why did I have this set up over here? Well, because we know that if this left parenthesis equals 0, no matter what this right parenthesis is, it could be anything, 0 times blank, doesn't matter, equals 0, okay? Or, if this parenthesis equals 0, it doesn't matter what this parenthesis is, this, whatever, times 0 is going to equal 0, okay? So we know that we can have either one of these equations equal to 0, and it will make a true statement, okay? So, let's go ahead and solve making each one of these equal to 0. So we want this parenthesis, this blue parenthesis right here, we want it to be equal to 0. Or we want this parenthesis, the green one, 2x minus 3 equal to 0. Either one of those can be true to make this a true statement to have it equal to 0. And let me show you once we solve it, okay? It'll be more clear once we actually put in numbers. So we have subtract 6 from both sides. We're just solving two equations here, two multi-step equations. This one's a one-step, x equals negative 6. Or, what's the other possibility? We're going to add 3. We're going to add 3. We get 2x equals 3. So we get divide by 2, x equals 3 halves, or 1.5. So we have two possibilities. X could equal that, or that. We have x equals negative 6 or x equals 1.5. Now, let's go ahead and input this into the equation so you see what I'm talking about. First, we'll input x equals negative 6. So we'll put negative 6 in for x, plus 6 equals 2 times negative 6 minus 3 equals 0. Okay, is this a true statement? Remember, we inputted these values, negative 6 and negative 6. Those were our inputs. We get 0 here, and then we get what? Negative 12 minus 3. So negative 15 times 0, what does that equal? It equals 0, of course, okay? Because 0 times anything is going to equal to 0, so 0 times negative 15 equals 0. So let's go ahead and put 1.5. So we put 1.5 plus 6 times 2 times 1.5 minus 3. As a reminder, we inputted this 1.5 and this 1.5 there. What happens here? Well, we get 7.5 on the left, And then we get 3 minus 3 on the right, 7.5 times 0. Does that equal 0? Yes, it does. Okay, both of these equal 0 because all you need is one parenthesis to equal 0, and it makes a true statement. So both of these make it true, and there we go. That's how you do it. You get it into your factored form, okay? Get it into your factored form, set it equal to 0, and then solve for each parentheses so you get your values of x. And that's how you solve in factored form, a quadratic. Now, what if it's not factored? Well, look at this guy. We have a couple things going on. One, we notice the main thing, it's not set equal to 0. So that's the first thing we need to do. Anytime it's not equal to 0, always, always, always get one side equal to 0. And generally, you don't want this to be negative, the x squared term, so try to keep that positive and rearrange it as necessary to make sure that it stays positive, okay? So we just moved everything over, and now it's equal to 0. Now we need to set up our parentheses to factor it. It's called the zero factor property, so we have to factor it. I'm going to put a 2x here and an x here. If you need a review on factoring, check out some of my other videos. Now I need a positive 3, so I want to make this a positive 2, this a negative 1, and that should be good. Yes. Now, just to check my factoring, in case you're wondering, that times each other is 4x. This times itself is 1x, and that adds up to 3x, so I know I did those terms correctly. 2 times negative 1 gives me negative 2, the last term. And then 2x times x gives me 2x squared, so I'm good. I factored this correctly. Now what do? Well, I want to make sure both of these parentheses are equal to 0. I want to solve for x and set both of these equal to 0. So I say 2x minus 1. This could be equal to 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. The first one, we're going to add 1 to both sides. Oops, plus 1. Sorry about the equal sign. 2x equals 1 divided by 2 divided by 2. X equals 1/2. That's one possibility. Or minus 2, x equals negative 2. And you'll notice anytime it's just like x plus something or x minus something, the value of x is just going to be the opposite of what you see here. If you see a positive 2, it's going to be negative 2. That's what makes it go to 0. So we're done. Those are our two answers that make this equation go to 0. 1/2 and negative 2. Okay, here we go. Now we have another one. We have 4x squared minus 20x. Well, we're going to follow our what do you call it? We're going to follow our procedure here that we learned in the last video, and we're always going to look for a GCF. Here we have a GCF. That means common factor. The 4 and the 20 have a common factor, and then we have the x's having a common factor. So we're going to factor out 4x. That is the GCF, the greatest common factor between these. What's left? We have x minus 5 equals 0. Now you're thinking, this is different. This is different than the other ones. It's not. It's not different. Okay, we still have two parentheses, so to speak. This one doesn't have parentheses, but we could draw parentheses around it, and now it's the same thing. Well, what's different? Well, we just have to set 4x equal to 0 or x minus 5 equal to 0. How do you get the x by itself? Divide by 4, x equals 0, or add 5, x equals 5. Both of these values will make it go to 0. So if you're like, I don't see parentheses around it, what do? You set it equal to 0. They're times each other. Essentially, we could add parentheses around it, but it's the same thing. So now we have our two answers, x equals 5 or x equals 0. You input either one of those, and it makes the whole thing go to 0. Okay, last one. A little bit more tricky. We're going to, again, subtract 5x to both sides. Get everything on the same side. Minus 9x squared minus 5x. And now it's equal to 0. We got to factor out an x. So we're going to factor out an x here because it has a GCF. Notice here we have x squared, x. There's no common factor with the coefficient, so we're just going to factor out the x. And we're left with 2x squared minus 9x minus 5. So we're going to factor this one further. Leave the x out in front. If you want, put parentheses around it. That's fine too. And now we have 2x and x. Okay, those are my factors of this first term. And now I need factors of this second term. Or sorry, last term. And I'll put that there. So factors of 5. So I'm going to probably make this 5, negative 5, positive 1. I know this is right because if I multiply 2 times negative 5, I get negative 10x, and then this gives me positive 1x, and those add together to give me negative 9x, so I know that is true. Now I'm done with my factoring. It's still equal to 0, and now I'm going to solve. I can say x is equal to 0, or 2x plus 1 is equal to 0, or this time there's 3, x minus 5 equal to 0. Anytime there's multiplication of different products, you have to set every single one equal to 0. So this one's already solved. We got one answer. We're going to subtract 1, 2x equals negative 1, divide by 2, x equals negative 1/2. There's always going to be equations to solve for these problems. Add 5, x equals positive 5. So we have 3 answers this time, and you're going to learn later that if there's a cube there, usually that means there's 3 answers, and here they are. X equals 0, x equals negative 1/2, and x equals 5. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment if you want to see more videos like this. And if you enjoyed it, go ahead and press the like button. I never say that, but this time I did for some reason. Anyway, this is Mr. West. See you next time.